Now, this will be a bit difficult the next 1 or 2 minutes. This is not Heidegger's metaphysics, but this is the way he thinks about everything. In the most fundamental way, and I hesitate to use the word fundamental because it's a metaphysical term, it's grammar fails, the grammatiek failed. Most emphatically, there is being, the sending of being. He also calls it Lichtung. Lichtung is not from light, because it's also when you lift the anchor, that's also Lichtung. Or when there's in the forest, some trees are cut, there an open space occurs, Lichtung. So the most fundamental way that being happens, is this sending. But this sending happens in epochal destinings. In German, Geschick. So Schickung goes Geschick, destinings. The destining of Greek philosophy, the destining of medieval philosophy, the mood of faith, the destining of modernity. And there are destinings to come that we may anticipate on. Very difficult, but we may. On a very concrete level, existential, this sending, Schickung, Geschick, destinings, is Geschichte. That is the ontic way that we approach this phenomenon. Usually we forget about the first two. Normally we are in the forgetfulness of being only concerned with history. And history, which we call fate, and which may be bad, something that is bad that is happening, good times, bad times. This is what science, history does. Talk about history as a succession of facts, historical facts, and we can be pessimistic about history or optimistic about history. That is the ontic level. But Heidegger is thinking about the first two, but now this second half of the class is focusing on this Geschick, this destining, this epochal moods, the era, this specific revealment of being in our time. And as I said, according to Heidegger, the specific revealment of our time is technology.
Hello and welcome back to First Philosophy. My name is Kas and
I'm Sonia Schwitz.
And today we're delving even further into Heidegger.
One of the least predictable things about this episode and about this podcast is that we're going to be talking about Heidegger.
And I'm very glad to be doing so.
Yeah, but of course we're continuing on the post-turn Heidegger,
yes.
Which got introduced last time.
Yeah.
The techno Heidegger, as you once said.
Which was off the record, but fine. Yeah. No, we're finally delving further into techno Heidegger. Through readings, actually. So Ave will be reading from the question concerning technology.
Pretty closely.
Which he says is a difficult text, which does not have to be too hard.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering what your experiences with it are.
Well, I think I don't remember it as being hard, which I think is actually to the credit of Ave and the tutor that I had, which I don't remember, unfortunately, at that time what tutor I had, but I remember finding it very useful and very like explanatorily good, the seminars. And it felt like reading something that's I've intuited finally being articulated, a certain intuition about what is happening now and what is finally being put into words, and that has resulted in maybe possibly quite an annoying thing that I think literally every bigger essay that I've written after contains at least one reference to the question concerning technology. It's a really inescapable text for me.
I think for a lot of people.
Yeah.
I think it is a very, very influential text.
So how was it for you reading it?
So my first experiences beside this lecture, so I don't really remember reading it for this lecture series. I must have done so, but I cannot really recollect it.
Yeah.
But the first time I tried to read the full essay was during the summer break after the first year. And I really, back then I was still my performative philosophy student phase.
You were wearing a turtleneck and plus 30.
It wasn't that bad, but I was definitely wearing a button-up shirt. Yeah. And I just went into a park, like taking my Heidegger book with me and with a pencil, sitting down in the grass and having a glass of rosé wine and try to work through the text.
Some things never change.
Well, what did definitely change after that, although now I could do so, now I am far better acquainted with Heidegger. I should have taken it a little bit more seriously and have maybe sat down at the desk where I could make proper notes instead of relying on just starting and reading and getting everything. But I remember that it was one of the first texts that I chose to read outside of studying that I really wanted to get and that I thought was in reach. I didn't get it back then. I still needed a little bit more time. Like I got the headlines, sure.
Yeah.
But like the true inner workings of the text that I'm not sure if I understand it fully now. But I do get it quite a lot better than a couple of years ago. But that it felt within reach. Yeah. And that it also, I understand what you say with that it almost feels like there's an intuition that you already had that was kind of, yes.
Yeah.
You're articulating something that I kind of reckoned.
Yeah.
Which is interesting. I also had that with this text. And I also have never been able to escape it, nor did I make any attempts to escape it. I've quite with quite certainty have I kept with this text.
Yeah, I think I think both of these are really glowing recommendations for engaging with it. Just how important it is.
Yeah. Let's not keep you any longer.
Exactly.
Let's turn to Ave reading Question Concerning Technology.
So Heidegger writes an essay which is called The Question Concerning Technology. Again, difficult to read, but not that difficult if you listen well. And again, you find the word essence all over the text, where in fact it should have been written Wesen, temporality. Heidegger says, I want to question technology, and questioning builds a way. Questioning is not giving an answer. Questioning is just remaining close to what you are questioning. And in questioning technology, we prepare a free relationship to technology. And its relationship will be free if it opens our human existence to the essence, to the Wesen, the happening, the event of technology. That's what it's all about. Freedom, here, in Heidegger's sense, is being open to the unconcealment of technology. As long as we think of technology as something technical, he says we'll never reach it. This is what we usually do. We define technology, or we have some relationship to it. And he says there are three relationships to technology that will never, ever reach questioning technology, which will never reach philosophy, real thinking. Heidegger even hesitates to use the word philosophy, because philosophy is, in his eyes, metaphysics. Thought, thinking, is more adequate than philosophy. As long as even if we say technology is a good thing, so the utopian view, or if we say technology is a bad thing, there are two approaches to technology that many of us hold. Heidegger says that is ignorance, that is stupidity. So if you say technology is a good thing because it has really enhances the quality of our lives, the technology of birth control has been a very liberating development. There's many reasons to have an utopian view on technology. Technology is something good. But that is not the way to go. Also, it's not the way to go to have a dystopian attitude towards technology, to see that technology is a bad thing that is happening to us. Big Brother is watching you the way that we are now on a constant surveillance, or the enormous pollution that technology has caused. That is very good reasons to have a dystopian attitude towards technology. Heidegger says, then you're not thinking. That is just valuing. The worst way to go about it is to call technology something neutral. That is the instrumental attitude towards technology. This is in fact what most of us have. Most of us would say, I will read two definitions of technology that Heidegger mentioned, and I think that we would all agree. Technology is a means to an end. Second, technology is a human activity. Very difficult to deny. Technology is a means to an end. Technology is a human activity. These are the instrumental and anthropological definitions of technology. And Heidegger says, who would ever deny that these definitions aren't correct? They are correct. Whatever device you look at, whatever technological device, either if it be a primitive hammer or a nuclear plant, both definitions are apt. They are correct, but they are not true. And here we come to this Heideggerian attitude towards what truth is. They do not reach the unconcealment, the aletheia of that which is happening in technology. Because what is the instrumental itself? We think with technology you can cause things. Now we're talking about causes, instrumentality, causes. Do we even know what that is? There's a phrase in Plato's Symposium where he says, poetics, poiesis, techne, and physis are the same. So poetry, technology, and nature are the same. They're not equal, they're the same. For us today, that is ridiculous. Technology and nature, they're each other's enemies, we would even say. No, from the perspective of aletheia, they are the same. In poetry, from the concealment of the thoughts and the feelings of the poet, words come to light, become unconcealed. In technology, from the concealment of the soil, the silver is brought up and may be turned into a silver chalice. From the concealment of the soil, the plants grow and become unconcealed. They're the same. Aristotle even had a very, very famous analysis of causality. There are 4 causes, Aristotle says. Maybe you know about this. Take a silver chalice, een zilveren schaal. There are 4 causes, according to Aristotle. This is not how we would think. It has 4 causes. The first is the material cause, the silver. It's a cause. We wouldn't say that now, but Aristotle did. The second cause is the causa finalis, the purpose of the chalice. For instance, that you would use it in a ceremony. The third is the causa formalis, the form of the chalice. It's not round, it may be oval. This is a cause, according. And then the fourth cause is the causa efficiens, the silversmith. We today would say, who causes or what caused this silver chalice? We would all say the silversmith. So we have changed our ways of thinking from Aristotle, who had 4 causes. And now we say there's only one cause. That's one. These are specific ways that our thinking has changed. If we look at technology, Heidegger says, from this broader perspective, we see it is a mode of revealing. Technology is a mode of revealing. Technology comes to presence in the realm where revealing and unconcealment take place, where aletheia, truth, happens. So this is. But then Heidegger says there's a difference between old-fashioned, traditional technology and modern technology. Traditional technology is also a revealing, but it doesn't demand the soil to be revealing. He gives the example of the modern technology is a challenging revealing. So us now, in our technological attitude, we are all engaged in a challenging, herausfordernd, opvorderend, revealing. And Heidegger gives the example of a windmill, which is interesting now because we have all these windmill parks. And he says, the old windmill is not a challenging. Its sails do indeed turn in the wind. They are left entirely to the wind's blowing. But the windmill does not unlock energy from the air currents in order to store it. So in fact, it's interesting, some students have written theses on this, that in fact there's something meddling going on. But in Heidegger there's an attitude. In modern, so challenging revealing, so for us now, the earth reveals itself as a coal mining district, the soil as a mineral deposit. The field that the peasant formerly cultivated appears differently than it did when it went to set in order, meant to take care of it and to maintain it. The work of the peasant does not challenge the soil of the field. It's sowing grain, it places seeds in the keeping of the forces of growth and watches over it increase. But modern agriculture is now the mechanized food industry. Yeah, this is what we're doing now. So there's a completely different attitude towards the world. Air is now set upon to yield nitrogen, the earth to yield ore to yield uranium. Uranium is set up to yield atomic energy, which can be unleashed either for destructive or for peaceful purposes. This is what we all see. We only see the purpose of things. If in this kind of thinking, an orange is a source for vitamin C. We don't see the orange anymore, we just see it as a source for vitamin C. This is the challenging revealing of modern technology. It's constantly unlocking and exposing. It's driving on to the maximum yield at the minimum expense. That is the attitude that we're in now. The era, the attunement that we are in now, everything, our own lives, the world, everything, we try to drive it to the maximum yield at the minimum expense. Groot mogelijkste opbrengst met de minst mogelijke middelen. That is the goal, the attitude that we are in. Everything becomes to be on call. So the revealing that rules throughout modern technology, bottom of 224, has the character of a setting upon in the sense of a challenging forth, unlocking, top 225, transforming, storing, distributing, and switching about our ways of revealing. But we forgot about that, they're ways of revealing. Because everything in our eyes is ordered to stand by, to be immediately at hand. We call this, Heidegger says, standing reserve, bestand. Bestand. The world has become a bestand, a standing reserve. Now this resembles, and he says, we don't even see objects anymore. This remembers a bit of Being in Time, where Heidegger says a tool is not an object, it is something that has a purpose. But this is a completely new way of approaching the phenomena, what Heidegger does now. There are no longer objects, they're just standing reserves. So it's not a radicalization of Being in Time, but a different approach of it. But the most important thing is that there's a complete depreciation of the singularity of things. Everything has to be available. Everything has to be manipulated. Everything becomes a resource. Even you, in the language of the Ministry of Education, you are input, throughput, and output. The dean of the Department of Economy once told me, I no longer speak of students. I speak of units of 12,000 euro. That's what you are. This is a way of thinking. Human resource management, the idiom. It's incredible that we accept this. Usually there was this I don't know what the English word would be before. In Dutch, personeelszaken. Your personal affairs. If you had a trouble, you'd go to personal affairs and then you would solve your problem. Now, this department is called HR. Human Resource Management. How is it possible? Well, it is possible, it's happening, because we are so engulfed in this era of technological thinking, of calculating thinking, that we are reducing everything to a standing reserve, even ourselves. We are human capital. People consider themselves as human capital. This is incredible that we start to think about this. We perpetually calculate new possibilities, new options. This is what we're constantly doing. And while we're doing this, we live, Heidegger says, in the era of the Gestell, in English, the enframing, very influential idiom Heidegger used. And he says, I know a frame or enframing, it reminds from a grocer who has, this has nothing to do with the joke on Hegel, who has his stocks on frames. But he says, but I use this word in a very specific way, and don't blame me. Plato used the word idea for the world of ideas, while in Greek, idea just meant the way things look. So this is what philosophers do. If you're really thinking, you might find a word that is so forceful and so explicatory that you can really understand the world. The world has become a constant enframing of everything for the purpose of the maximum yield at minimum expense. This is what the world Gestell means. This is how we are living. We are living in the destiny of revealing of the era of technology. And Heidegger says there's no culprit here. Some would say enframing, oh, it's capitalism. Oh, it's the great industrial CEOs who are framing us. The politicians are framing us. Heidegger says, no, that is an ontic approach to it. There's a more fundamental way of enframing. Capitalism is just one way of technological thinking. Economy, as such, is not just one way of technological thinking. That economy becomes econometrics. That psychology becomes statistics. These are all just symptoms, signs of something more fundamental, that we're always trying to enframe the world and calculate everything to its optimum results. But if we think like this, Heidegger says, very important, we will realize that this is just our destiny. This is the destiny of our time. Technology is not the work of the devil. Technology is not a blessing. Listen, we shouldn't think in these terms. We should do phenomenology. Technology is just a way of thinking. Calculating thinking is the way that we think right now. And then he has a very eloquent way of explaining this. He says the sending of being and the destining of being might be called danger. Danger in the sense that it puts us on the spot and we are engulfed by it. We can not just escape from it. But there's something very specific happening in modern technology. And Heidegger calls modern technology the utmost danger, the most supreme danger. You might argue about whether he is indeed valuing now. But he has 2 points, 2 descriptions, and I just want to know if you would agree with him, if he's doing adequate phenomenology. The specific danger of modern technology is that we cannot imagine... No, it's not that. The specific danger is that everything becomes enframed within our technological calculative thinking. We do no longer see ourselves as existence, as human beings, or whatever we even thought of ourselves, or religious animals. No, in fact, we're all functionaries of technology now. Employable flex workers. We're all within the framework of technology. We can't escape it. We don't even want to escape it. We want to be. I once gave a class on economy, master students, and I gave this theory. And they said, no, Heidegger's right. When I will have my wonderful job with my wonderful salary, I will be a bestand. I will be standing reserve for my superiors. Of course, this is what I do. From 9 to 5 or from 8 to 6, because if you want to make a career these days, you got to work harder. I will be a standing reserve. But then I go home, and then I enjoy myself at home, and I have my holidays. And they didn't realize that when they went home, they were part of the transportation industry. And when they were at home, they were part of the entertainment and industry. And when they went on holiday, they were part of the tourist industry. And with industry, again, I do not mean something economical, because economy is just much smaller than technology. It's just one way of thinking technologically. It's all around. That's the first thing. Everything, the only way, this is one-dimensional thinking, that we all approach every problem technologically. I'll come back to that later. Second is that we cannot even imagine other ways of thinking. We cannot imagine other ways of approaching the world. That is the supreme danger, that we cannot even imagine that there are other ways of thinking. We think Christian thinking, oh, that's obsolete, that's stupid. Greek thinking, very interesting, but that's that's no longer tenable. What we are doing is real thinking. This is progress. This is progress. We are at the summit of progress, summit of technological progress. The technology will become better and better and better, and will enhance the quality of our life more and more and more and more, not knowing in what supreme danger we are in. So understand me well. According to Heidegger, the true and utmost danger of technology is not the risk of technology going wrong. It is not the risk of a nuclear catastrophe. It is not the risk of a climate catastrophe, no matter how serious we can take these. But philosophically speaking, the true danger is that we are constantly entangled in calculating thinking.
So, having listened to the introduction to Heidegger's critical thinking about calculative thinking, I think we should turn back towards the beginning of this reading, and to the opening gambit of the claim that proper questioning is not giving an answer, and questioning is just remaining close to what you are questioning. Because I think this, for a lot of people reading Heidegger, this, if they're unfamiliar with his way of writing or his way of questioning, this is something that is very, very frustrating.
Yeah, it is.
I think a lot of people. I have hosted and organized philosophy events where people kind of end up at the evening with a questioning look and saying, so what was the answer?
Yeah.
And then I have to kind of freeze and have to try to convince them that the answer is not the point, that the questioning is exactly the point. And I think that is true for a very large section of philosophy.
Yeah.
But it is specifically true for Heidegger.
Yeah, and I can't blame anyone. It is almost a caricature, you know, of what people, of why people think philosophy is annoying. And you know, mea culpa. Yeah, this is the way it is.
Yeah. No, I mean, Socrates already claimed that was the position of the philosopher, and I think not many philosophers wanted to turn away from that opportunity. But it is it was also said in this lecture, right? The thought and thinking is more adequate than philosophy.
Yeah,
that is. Some people find that insulting towards philosophy from Heidegger, but it shows that it is not about a rigid set of beliefs or about concluding the answers and then be done with it. It is about a continuous questioning and search.
And it's important, I think, also to underline that questioning is not critiquing.
Yes.
Which I think is also a big point that Ave tries hammering down throughout the lecture series. And in general, it's just, I think it's very easy to conclude that, continuous questioning is the same as critiquing, which it completely is not. Questioning presupposes the opening questioning, at least ideally, whereas critiquing the word itself, with the word itself, you've already decided your position towards the topic being critiqued.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also that first asking the question. I think if you would read Heidegger, one of the best cases of him doing this would be in The Origin of the Work of Art. Because in there, the first few pages are him just questioning everything, but in a very structured way. And also, like, if you want to explain what art is, do we then look to the artist or the artwork, or is the artwork an artwork because of the artist, or is the artist an artist because of the artwork? Like that line of questioning, which I think that if that frustrates people, that is kind of the point. Yeah. Because if it kind of shows, well, not kind of, it just shows that you are relying on assumptions and that you are not really willing to walk away from these assumptions. And that is something where philosophy is really, really powerful and really interesting.
Yeah. I guess we're almost, without really meaning to, circling back to that thing that I think I was mentioning with Sartre about there not being the final answer. But, there's, in that case, impossibility of ethics doesn't mean you aren't supposed to be trying. And that, of course, this ties in with what you're saying, and practically means that the search for truth is a never-ending endeavor, and the one that also it would be dishonest if we ever implied that the truth would be found.
Yeah. Yeah, and that for Heidegger, that would then be like unconcealment that has that is revealed to you, which is not excluding other unconcealments, or should not exclude other unconcealments. And that is also where the phrase, earlier spoken phrase, correct but not true, comes from, I believe. Yeah. That Heidegger gives two definitions of technology, and then says, well, those are correct, but they're not true. Yeah. Like, sure, yeah, it is correct to say that about it, but it doesn't say anything. Yeah. It doesn't show. It doesn't bring technology in unconcealment. It just says things that are correct.
Yeah, I mean, a correctness can be characterized maybe as it's a statement that is not contradictory within a certain set of within a certain context, right? Yeah. So the way I thought about it, maybe you don't agree with it, which we'll see. If, like, imagine you are, I don't know, an economics student and you're solving a macroeconomics problem, and you get it correctly. You can say that this conclusion that you've had is a correct one. However, famously, all these economical, models, they have a lot of assumptions underneath them. Like, we're assuming that human is profit maximizing, not profit, but something maximizing. It's this very rigid logic. So even though it is correct, but it is not true.
No, it doesn't say anything true about it. Yeah, the human.
That the human is a rational actor, which I think we can all think of examples of that not be the case.
Yeah,
I like the example. I'm not. Maybe
Heidegger points scoring.
Maybe stricter Heideggerians than me would see many faults in this example. But
so he's taking back the points. He's walking back the points.
No, I don't know, but I do like that. But yeah, you can say correct things within a specific framework. Yeah. Without saying anything true. Yeah. It is correct. It's not true. It's richtig, aber nicht wahr.
So the example I just said is not correct. Is correct within my own context, but it is not true of Heidegger's thought.
Maybe it brings Heidegger's thought into true unconcealment.
Well, I don't think so. Yeah, but The thing that I really wanted also to zero in on is the way Ave talks about the real danger is at some point not being able to imagine other ways of thinking.
Yeah.
Other than this calculative thinking. And I think it rings so true, and it is very clearly so extremely relevant today. There is I believe this is exactly what we struggle with, the mainstream intellectual, the streams and the way we think about our times. And you can see all these very influential cultural, specifically philosophers and theorists talk about this. This immediately makes me think about, of course, Mark Fisher was a very extremely influential cultural critic and some would say philosopher. In two different instances, he had this book, of course, Capitalist Realism, where he said very famously that it is easier to imagine the end of the world than the end of capitalism, which is kind of taking what Heidegger is saying, but applying it in an existential way, ontic way, so filling in kind of the context. What he's saying. He also talked about it in Ghost of My Life, I believe, where this beautiful phrase was coined: the slow cancellation of the future. How we're not able to, the future is disappearing, and we're no longer being able to imagine it.
Yeah.
With also very famously Francis Fukuyama proclaiming that we've reached the end of history.
We're done.
Yeah, he said, we're done.
You can go home, guys.
Congratulations, everybody.
We have finally finished history. And then it was insane. After 9/11, exactly a month after 9/11, he published an article doubling down. He said, I was still right. We're still, it is still the end of history.
Brave man.
Yeah.
Francis Fukuyama, thank you for your service.
Yeah, but this is just I wanted really to give an example of how right Heidegger was, however pervasive this sentiment is, from Fisher more critically and saying it as a bad thing, from Fukuyama just kind of really and critically going with it.
Yeah, and I think this it also shows in people's response to a lot of these things, that if I would tell people about this Heidegger text, and also saying that as Heidegger says, that we need to develop a more free relation to technology. Like in the text, Heidegger also says we cannot go back.
Yeah.
Because sometimes there's this image of Heidegger, because he uses more archaic examples to say, Heidegger just wants to go back to like romantic Germany without any industrial. Well, he acknowledges that is not possible. Yeah. Maybe he wants to go back, but he acknowledges that is not possible. So he's not naive in saying, let's go back to the Stone Ages when everything was fine. Like, that is definitely...
He would definitely go back to Greece.
yeah, he would.
Yeah, I should have gone with Greece, yeah. No, but that is it's not about going back, it's about a different relation, a more free relation to technology. And also trying to move away from that we can only look at the world in a calculating way. And then the response often is, okay, so how do we do that?
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the alternative? What's the solution? As soon as you point out a problem or point out something that you disagree with, and someone immediately says, okay, so what's the problem? So what's the solution then? Yeah. How do we move forward? I mean, it's always, if someone has an idea, you can ask, do you have a suggestion to move forward? Fine, ask that. Yeah. Brilliant. But the assumption, like, okay, but how do we fix this, is inherently calculative. It's almost not even worth to point out a problem unless you also have the ready and set solution. And I think that is very interesting, because if there is a solution, then we should already see it, because we have all the knowledge. We have calculated everything. Yeah. If you are able to diagnose the problem, then you are also able to see the fix. And that is something that Ave definitely is trying to lecture against. Yeah. To that assumption. And he doesn't do it that much, I think, in his English lectures, but in some of his Dutch lectures, he refers back to Nietzsche's quote from Dawn of Day, which I think is beautiful, which is the quote, "There are so many dawns which have not yet shed their light."
Yeah.
And that is the many dawns that are still to come are the dawns in which a different thinking is allowed to arise.
Yeah. I mean, I think this text is extremely important to the line of thinking that I'm very interested in, on thinking of how anything new can arise, which is a very difficult question to grapple with.
Yeah.
It's like dealing with an unknown. How can anything new, because we're so stuck.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very fruitful line of thinking, even though it's so difficult that it's intimidating.
It is.
And is it also the case that if you have a truly fundamental problem, then it's almost already impossible to apply a solution in the same way with the problem? That would almost exclude it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be such a fundamental problem.
But it's not. The thing is that it's not about the solution. How does a new function to not solve something but be on its own, which, it's talking about Deleuze difference and repetition. It's also a problem of identity. I should stop. This is becoming too technical of a tangent.
No, I'm going to get Deleuze's book out here. We're going to do this right now.
We're going to do a reading.
Yeah, but maybe what I'm saying is that, as indicated by my tangent, so many ideas and thoughts. This is an intersection of so many things. It's so interesting to start thinking about it.
Yeah.
Which is just, I guess, a praise for the text.
It is. And that is also why this text is so influential to a lot of people doing philosophy of technology, philosophy about ecology, because there's a lot in this text already. For the existentially dreaded listener who doesn't like these kind of, who do want the fix.
Yeah.
I think someone who's trying to do this thinking, although without mentioning Heidegger, would be Donna Haraway. I adore Staying with the Trouble. That book is if you're not versed in philosophy, it's a very accessible book. It is technical at points, but it is graspable. And
I think saying it's a very accessible book is a little bit of an exaggeration.
It is a decently accessible book.
Yeah.
Fair. But the Donna Haraway gives examples of how not to ignore a problem, also not solving it, but also doing something differently.
Staying with
the trouble.
All right, with that positive message in mind, let's return back.
Now let's look at some movements that should not be entangled in calculating thinking. Take the Club of Rome. The Club of Rome was a group of concerned scientists who in 1971 published a very important book, Limits to Growth. Limits to Growth was warning the entire community of mankind that there are limits to growth. They were calculating resources, and the resources would run out and we would no longer be able to live. Greenpeace, a wonderful organization, is constantly calculating carbon oxide emission. It's constantly calculating global warming. It's calculating the gap in the ozone layer, or that the green heart of Holland, that's about 5 trees near Gouda, is getting smaller and smaller. They're constantly calculating, and calculating, of course, new solutions. The technological fix is a typical Heideggerian idiom. The technological fix is that we tend to think, not all of us, but normally we think if there's a technological problem, we must find a technological solution. And of course we will find them. Most people say we will find them. We have tried this with recycling. Recycling was an attempt to fight pollution. But phenomenologically speaking, philosophically speaking, you may think I'm a sentimental old man, and you're right. But don't you agree that recycling is one of the worst insults that we can have towards things? Things are not even considered to be things anymore. They are just torn apart and being recycled in this constant movement of the maximum yield with the minimum expense. Yeah. There's something strange happening to us. There's a strange oblivion to being, of being towards death. We are all about fitness. In fact, fitness is also enframing. The fitness, optimizing yourself, your body. You have to be constantly fit. Yeah? In this forever young culture. Cosmetic surgery, yeah, constantly improving, technologically improving the world. Yourself, your body. Human enhancement, very important development in medicine now, human enhancement. Even genetic engineering. Heidegger is very much criticized, but there is Hitler's eugenetics project, which considered that unhealthy people should not live. And we all know the atrocities and the abyssal immorality of Nazi thinking. But let's look at what we are doing. Heidegger made once a comparison which made him very unpopular. He said modern industry and modern cattle industry or chicken industry, bio-industry is comparable to the concentration camps. And he even said in the concentration camps nobody died. Nobody died in the concentration camps. They were just destroyed. That's what he meant. They were just destroyed. Mind you, the concentration camps in Germany were built using the maps of the cattle industry in Texas. You have the animals come in, you pick out the ill ones, destroy them, you use the healthy ones until you can't use them anymore, and then you destroy them. Bio-industry, we don't see chickens, they're just producers of eggs. A pig is a producer of meat, yeah? It's a resource of meat. This way of thinking, so it sounds terrible. We now have, and we're very proud of it, we have amniotic fluid puncturing, because we can detect all kinds of illness beforehand. Why? What is happening here? We don't want ill people, we don't want weak people on earth. Don't be mistaken. Once with this amniotic puncturing, we can find out that people will have children that will be deaf or blind. What do you think the insurances will do? The insurance companies will do when you still decide to have this child? You'll pay for it yourself. Don't worry about that. It's always calculating thinking. It's always reducing the world to a configuration of problems and solutions. Even in, there's this a new agreement in the Netherlands, het Integraal Zorgakkoord, which all doctors have signed now and the politicians have signed it. You know what they say? We don't no longer want to talk about disease. We don't use the word illness and disease anymore. We call it a disadvantage of health, a lack of health, a gezondheidsachterstand. So everybody has to be healthy. And we're going to do interventions for people who live unhealthily. These things are all going to happen because this is calculating thinking, reducing the world to a conglomerate of problems that has to be solved. If there's unemployment, a problem, and we want a solution. Migration, problem, solution. Too high cost in healthcare, problem, solution. We're not talking about existing people anymore. We're not talking about existence. We're only talking about enframing the world in which it becomes a configuration of problems and solutions. Sloterdijk wrote a nice book. It's called Crystal Palace. The German title is different, but the Dutch translation is Kristalpaleis, which was based on a notes that Dostoevsky wrote when he was in London, in Crystal Palace, where there was the World Exhibition of Technological Advancements. And it's to be found in wintry notes on summer impressions. Dostoevsky walks there through the Crystal Palace. All these wonderful, it's 1862, so not that special, but these new machines. And he says there's all glass and clearness, and he says, everything functions. But something's missing here, he writes. Something's missing here. There's no suffering. There's no suffering in this exhibition. Nobody even acknowledged the fact that people suffer. And Sloterdijk's Crystal Palace is about this. He says, and this is something to think about, the true philosophical anthropological challenge of the 21st century is to en masse produce last men and women and also completely clean energy that can be wasted. This is what we're actually all doing without knowing it. The ideal world would be that we would all be last men and women, only trying to be successful, happy, have a good life, an interesting life, and a life full of wonderful things that happen to you, and at the same time have energies that don't cost anything, so we don't have that problem. So what if the climate problem would be solved? Yeah, then we would just live as last men and women. And I think in that respect, the climate crisis is the best thing that could ever happen to us. Because we make this terrible mistake, it's my own idiom, Dasein has become design. That's our true problem. Dasein has become design. We are no longer thoughtful of the fullness of the contingency, of unconcealment of human existence. We are making ourselves into a design. And can we overcome this? Can we overcome this? There's some attempts Heidegger made, not even Heidegger himself, but he was sympathetic to this. There's a wonderful approach from Erhard Kästner, a friend of Heidegger's, who wrote a book, The Revolution of Things. He said, I'm looking at art, and I look at artists who remind us that things are not standing reserve, but things are things to be respected. Nietzsche once said, the whole task of humanity is to become good neighbors with things. That's what we should do, become good neighbors with things. But things for us are only to be used, and then to be thrown away, or to be recycled, and then be reused in a new way, and then we think we're doing a wonderful thing.
A lot of information. We've covered a lot of ground, and I'd like to, at first, have a little personal moment and notice just how much it is clear from Avi's lecturing in this episode that he thinks a lot about ableism. He goes into he mentions eugenics. He talks about how people, quote, don't want weak people around. And it reveals something that Ave preoccupies himself with a lot, which is kind of a little window into something more personal. He teaches medical students a lot and emphasizes the importance and the kind of thinking of not looking past the person and not looking at them just as a patient and, as a problem that demands solution, but seeing them and their entirety as a person. Because there's this tendency, I wonder if you will agree that this is a good summation of a core idea, of kind of teaches of the danger of looking past the person and only seeing the symptoms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's time to address it
better than we have so far. I think both Kas and I have decided that, well, now that this is the last part of the, within this lectures, this is our last say on Heidegger.
Yeah.
And to bookend it, we should talk more explicitly about his affiliation with the Nazi Party.
And also specifically why it is interesting philosophically.
Yeah, and maybe provide like the historical context, like how exactly he was affiliated and what happened. Because, I mean, it's a little bit ambiguous, which is why people are struggling with it, while also not being ambiguous at all, right?
Yeah.
When, I think maybe you can better, with more detail, say where exactly, because he was in Freiburg, or was he in?
Yeah. He became the dean, right? The rector in Freiburg, and then you had to be a member of the party, which was for some people also the excuse for a while that well, he had to be, and for some people it still is. Like you could not be academically active between 33 and 45 unless you were a member of the party.
Yeah.
And that is also for some reason, that's also the reason that Heidegger gave during some interviews. Well, I kind of had to be.
Yeah.
And then it becomes more, like some people claim or have claimed in the past, it was just almost because you had to. Then there were people saying, well, even if you had to, you could still be like more rebellious in nature.
Yeah, because it's like he refused to burn the books.
Yeah, which is good.
Yeah, and he did fire all the Jewish people,
which is bad.
Yeah. So that is what I mean. Where it's like it's ambiguous, and I think what makes it even more ambiguous is the silence after.
Yeah,
which is the thing that many people grapple with. Heidegger did not talk about his affiliation. He did not mention it. He did mention it very, very few times.
Yeah, I'm aware of once in a letter to Karl Jaspers and once during a public lecture.
Yeah, which may be also important. Karl Jaspers was Jewish, and so were many, many of Heidegger's students. Well, Karl Jaspers wasn't a student, but in terms of academic connections.
Mm-hmm.
And I think maybe what makes this difficult is precisely the silence and the lack of acknowledgement. And
what makes it, because it would be very uninteresting to just go like, well, this guy had bad political opinions, hence let's not engage with his thought. I mean, that is not what we're trying to imply, and that is also not what the discussion is about.
No.
Because there is worry that his philosophy is inherently tainted by Nazi ideology. Mm-hmm. And that is a question that people are still working with today. Recently, Richard Wolin published a book, which is called Heidegger in Ruins, which tries to tackle this question.
And maybe like to provide the context of what is going on right now, we should mention that there is such a thing as the Black Notebooks. Which are the notebooks of Heidegger that are right now, they have been in the process of being published for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
And
a huge amount of pages.
Yeah, huge amount of pages.
Like 3,300 pages or to skim through.
Yeah. And there's a lot of explicit anti-Semitism there that is not in such an explicit way present in his academic writing.
Yeah.
Which is what raises the question.
Yeah.
Basically.
But it is something that a lot of people are actively struggling with.
Yeah.
And also some people are immediately saying, well, we should just throw Heidegger out of the curriculum. And I really hope for the listener that listening to the past episodes and also still this episode, that you hear the possible importance and what I still see as the beauty of Heidegger that's in there.
Yeah.
But I think not acknowledging this problem is also in bad faith.
Yeah, I think in the background just very insistent that we do talk about it very explicitly. Because also you don't have to forgive to engage.
No.
And I wanted to read out, it's been very clear that I'm really enthralled with Levinas. And Levinas, phenomenologists admired Heidegger, was, as you and I, Kas, discussed, was shattered the first time he heard, absolutely dumbfounded the first time he heard of the views that Heidegger held. It was a shattering moment, basically, for him.
Yeah.
And I wanted to read out a little bit from one of his Talmudic readings. Levinas at some point gave originally, I think, 4 or 5 colloquia on Talmudic readings, and then some more. So now they're assembled in a bundle called 9 Talmudic readings. And this is from the first ever colloquia, where he relays a story from Talmud where basically this person, Hanina, is faced with whether Rob, who's extremely intelligent, brilliant, should be forgiven or can be forgiven, is grappling with the problem of forgiveness. And this is what Levinas at some point says. He says, well, he writes, no, he actually says, and then it got transcribed. One can, if pressed to the limit, forgive the one who has spoken unconsciously. But it is very difficult to forgive Rob, who was fully aware and destined for a great fate, which was prophetically revealed to his master. One can forgive many Germans, but there are some Germans it is difficult to forgive. It is difficult to forgive Heidegger. Of course, the context being he was so brilliant.
Yeah.
And most of Levinas's family got exterminated in the Holocaust. So I just wanted to not gloss over that. And yeah, you don't have to forgive to engage.
No.
Yeah, and I mean, I kept maybe insisting to discuss it, of course, well, because I'm Jewish, and I have to say, the first time being prompted to engage with Heidegger, I did have a lot of resistance. I'm like, well, why would I read, why would I read him? Why would I read a Nazi? And I think maybe it's just good to relay that for any listeners who, once again, also find themselves struggling. That is why I keep saying, engaging is not forgiveness, and you don't have to forgive. And I think in that way, my experience is very different from your experience, Kas.
Yeah. I have already mentioned a few times that my first interactions with Heidegger, which politics were completely left out of that dimension. I was just taught in high school about some of his theories, that I immediately fell in love, and that I immediately found it wonderful. And to that level, even that as soon as I became aware of him having these politics, I was so unable to reconciliate what I took from that philosophy. Also, the idea of Das Mann, which to me was against populism, hence against fascism, hence irreconcilable with Nazism. So at first I brushed it away because I thought, surely not.
Yeah.
And then that is a massive privilege to be able to just do that and just brush that off. And since I think a year or two, I've been engaging it with that as well on the side, and it is massively uncomfortable.
Yeah.
To see someone that you adore for brilliant writings write such awful things.
Yeah. And I mean, that is also something that we know Ave is engaging with as well.
Absolutely.
Just to make it super clear that the fact that the lectures do not uncover it, there's only so much time in the lectures, as we've been re-emphasizing. It's quite important to allow the listener to engage with it first.
Yeah.
But I guess I insisted on taking this current liberty that we're taking.
And rightfully so.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with that, I think we're gonna say the last goodbye to Heidegger. Well, within this.
There's one more remark that I wanted to make is that and this is also very personal and maybe not at all interesting for the listener, but that exactly because of this tension, that I mean we're good friends, and this is not like an active tension in our friendship, but there is this like an academic tension between us in this sense.
Yeah.
That I was very happy that I started to read Sein und Zeit with friends, and I opened up an invitation to other people, and that you wanted to join. So I'm very happy about.
Yeah.
Because I've pink goggles occasionally when I'm reading Heidegger, and it is very nice to be able to share that with someone who I adore as a friend and adore academically, who is being able to be as critical occasionally. Yeah, that is the truth.
Okay, we're ending on
ending on a sweet note.
Yeah, don't even know how to segue.
Well, let's just. There is still some few lovely minutes by Ave also talking about the singularity of things and how we can be reminded of those.
How can we be reminded of the singularity of things? Well, some artists have done this, Erhard Kästner says. For instance, Cézanne. I already mentioned him in the class on Merleau-Ponty. Cézanne was painting the Mont Saint-Victoire from all kinds of angles, all relentlessly, entirely, never stopping. This is what he wanted to tell us. This is a thing. I can never grasp it. It'll never be mine. It's not there for me to use. It's there for me just to paint. There's this wonderful piece of art by Man Ray. It's a sewing machine with a burlap on it, a utilop, and it says, "Do not disturb." Do not disturb. So this is a thing that is only used for production. Do not disturb. The famous example, of course, by Duchamp, or in fact it was thought out by a female colleague artist, the fountain, the famous fountain. You may know this is an urinoir, a pissing device that you have in toilets for men to piss in. And he offered it to an exhibition of a famous museum in Paris, and he put a signature on it, Armoed as name, which means poverty, P-overty, Armoed. And he said, just exhibit this in your museum. See what happens. These are things. This is also a thing. Don't forget it. This is also a thing. Never forget that all things are things. And my favorite work of art, and you may not be impressed, is by Beuys. It's called Badewanne. It's just a children's animal bathtub, which through time, it's animal, it's been rusted, there's holes in it, it's useless. And he exhibited it in a museum. There it is, and he very gently put bandages on the holes in the bathtub. Just as a gentle gesture, this is also a thing. Children were bathed here. This was as such, is a very wonderful thing. Why would we consider it trash? So rethinking things is one strategy. Of course, Heidegger had many other strategies of rethinking the era of technology. He went back to the pre-Socratic philosophers. He tried mysticism, because the real true experience of being is just sitting and then you have the real feeling of being. But there's one, and then I want to end up with this. There's one quote from Hölderlin, German poet Hölderlin, which reads, "Full of merit, yet poetically does man dwell. Vol verdienst, doch dichterisch wohnet der Mensch." Full of merit. Look at all the technological splendor that we've made. Full of merit, but poetically do we dwell. And this poetic dwelling is exactly the remembering of the fullness of the unconcealment. And this brings Heidegger to, and then I really close my argument. There is something Heidegger says as a yes and no to technology. Because it's useless to say no to technology. No, that's stupid. It's our destiny. But our destiny is not our fate. Our destiny is not our fate. It's a destiny. There are different moods, different attitudes, different ways of living to come, fortunately. It would be terrible if we would live in this incredible exploiting of the earth. The earth is not the stage of where we realize ourselves. The earth is something much bigger. This is the phenomena of unconcealment. That is the earth. So, but there's a yes to technology. We can't deny technology. We will be thinking technological all the time. You also in your own life, you have a problem, you want a solution, you want a technological fix all the time quickly. But there's also a no to technology. Technology is not everything. There are other ways of thinking, other ways of approaching your lives, other ways of approaching people. And we should be attentive, and that is where calculative thinking is supported. Or even challenged with thoughtful thinking. Thoughtful thinking is to acknowledge the fullness of the contingency of concealment. And Heidegger calls this Gelassenheit, in English resignation, or in the best translation is releasement. Releasement is the true attitude in this era of technology, which you understand you're constantly thinking, doing technological things and attitudes, taking on attitudes, but there's also more. The releasement means that you release other ways of thinking. And all of these are my last words. Just promise me, try for the rest of your life to never let your Dasein become Design. Thank you.